Alright guys, so I'm outside a hospital in Toronto right now. I just got one of my teeth replaced. And once again, for those of you guys that tuned in because of the thumbnail and the title, the answer is yes. I just spent $3,000, almost $4,000 on one tooth. Now, once again, I know that sounds crazy, but I'm gonna explain why and how I can afford this like ridiculous expense. So without further ado, make sure you like down below and let's get into it. Anyways, a couple weeks ago, me and Steph were literally just at home, chilling, eating some food on the couch, when my tongue felt something really funny going on with my teeth inside my mouth. So the story starts all the way back in Kenya, and for those of you guys who didn't know or hadn't tuned into our Millennial Money feature, where I pretty much gave like a pretty solid background on my life journey and kind of where I come from, everything started in what I would call one of the most beautiful countries in the world, home to some of the most beautiful people on this earth. Now, when I was a kid, at least for the first 6 years of my life, I was raised in Nairobi, or just like 15 minutes outside of the city, so super close. And from what I remember, I loved life. Like, I was one of those kids who really enjoyed themselves. I loved playing outside. I remember I really hated the thought of even having to go to school, because basically where I lived, I had my own world, right? Like, my entire family was there. So for me, I just couldn't even imagine having to go outside and just go anywhere else, even if it meant going to school. Now, at some point, my family eventually moved to Toronto, and if I really think back to me growing up, I never thought about my teeth until I started to lose my baby teeth. And kind of like everyone else, my baby teeth obviously were small, they weren't as strong as my adult teeth, and I just never really thought about my teeth like at all. Like I was saying, when I started to lose my teeth and my adult teeth started coming in, that's when I noticed that there was a problem. My teeth didn't really look like my baby teeth. They weren't white and they weren't smooth. In fact, I remember like distinctly doing that thing where you like slide your, when you do that thing where you slide your tongue across your teeth. I remember my teeth just being super brittle and just kind of, they didn't feel like what your normal teeth would feel like, basically. Eventually, as time went on, I started to notice this like discoloration and this chipping across like a solid group of my teeth. And if I really think back, my teeth weren't actually white. Like, they were this like grayish, almost translucent color. And then, as more time went on, I started to notice that there was also this like yellow staining. For a kid to experience this, it really was crazy, because think about it, right? Like, it's something that you can see right away. And the problem really just continued from ages like 9 to 16. And what sucked is that during those years, those are your more like developmental years, right? So basically what was happening is that I was going from dentist to dentist, and no one was really telling me what I had. To me, it really felt like they were just kind of guessing and then just kind of continuing on with the appointment. At some point, I remember the word fluorosis floating around, but there wasn't this like concrete answer as to like what was happening with my teeth. To me, it honestly just felt like the dentists were just speculating, and they would often just tell me that my teeth were just really soft, likely because of the water that I had been exposed to when I was a kid, which probably had too much fluoride. Now, what's interesting is that the enamel on my teeth was just extremely weak. Like, for example, I remember having to eat ice cream or even drinking cold water. Like, it literally felt, it was so hypersensitive that it literally felt as if I could feel it in my bones. So I basically just kept complaining a lot to my mom, and eventually we were referred to this like really great dentist who did a ton of work on my teeth. So what he did is he actually put in 4 silver crowns. So I have 4 crowns at the back of my mouth. So like one on top there, bottom. And based on my understanding, what this did is that it actually helped preserve those teeth, and then it actually cut out that hypersensitivity that I had in particular at the back. What I will say though, like really sucked about going to these dentist appointments, is the fact that as a kid, you don't really understand what the outcome of each appointment is going to be, right? So in my mind, I'm like, I've got this problem, and basically I just need the right dentist to kind of figure it out. So I'd go into these appointments thinking, great, like today's the day where they make my teeth just normal. And then after every single appointment, I'd just be left with this just like sheer disappointment. Now, to fast forward a bit to me being in high school, so let's say ages like 16 or 17, somewhere around there, I had an appointment scheduled with my dentist, and once again at this point, I couldn't even tell you how many dentists that I've seen, right? Like, there's just been so many. Now, with this particular appointment, my dentist happened to not be in, so I had to see a different dentist who worked at that same office. Now, funny enough, this turned out to be one of the best things to ever happen to me, at least at the time. So what's crazy is that he was this like really young guy who had a ton of energy. He had done some like research or something on cases like mine. And for me, even when I look back at it, I honestly just think he wasn't someone who was settled in his career, right? Like, he wasn't someone who had been a dentist for like 20 years, and for him it was just another 9 to 5 where he was clocking in and clocking out. He brought a lot of energy to the table, and he was the first person who had used a different word to actually describe what he thought I had. Basically what he said to me is that he thought that I had hypermineralization that could be caused by either fluorosis or something called amelogenesis imperfecta. Now, I don't actually know which one it is that I have. I can't really remember. It was a long time ago that I got the diagnosis. But I do know that the one that I have is the one that's not genetic, but it's the one that's environmental based. So I believe that one is fluorosis. Now, the reason that I said that this was crazy, so the whole like my dentist being out and him being the one to see me that day, was because he knew of a program that was meant to help kids who either had, cases like mine or needed like significant dental surgeries or like, things like cleft lip, like a bunch of different things, right? And the beauty behind it was that it was here at the Hospital for Sick Kids, so Sick Kids here in Toronto. Now, the great thing about this program was that it accommodated you and your family financially, right? So we knew that this was gonna be thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So instead of you and your family having to pay the total cost, you would be on a payment plan where you paid a fraction of the cost, keeping in mind, obviously, that it's thousands of dollars, so it's still really expensive. But the intention of the program was to help out different families. So for those of you that don't know this, dental care can become extremely, extremely expensive, right? I know we live in Canada and we have universal basic health care, but one thing that's not covered is dental. And usually that's where your work benefits or your work plans come into play if you have them, right? Like, if you're someone who doesn't have them, then you're gonna have to pay tons of money just out of pocket. Anyways, I got accepted into their program, and this is where I met a ton of really cool dentists, orthodontists, and even someone I'd literally never heard of called a prosthodontist, right? And this is also kind of where my treatment plan came in. So all these specialties basically came together to come up with an action plan for what we were gonna do. Now, once again, this did come at a really high cost, and we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. So after speaking to my treatment team, they basically told me the plan. Now, the plan was to first correct my smile, so we're talking braces, and then after that, once that was done, then we would talk about other like restorative procedures. So to give you guys a bit more perspective on just how weak my teeth were, when you're getting braces on, they gotta put those little bracket things that actually hold the wire that goes across your teeth. It was so hard to keep those things on just because they would fall off because my teeth were so weak. It's funny, like my orthodontist literally compared my teeth to chalk, which once again, sounds kind of crazy, but it was a really, really great way to describe just how weak they were because honestly, like similar to chalk, they would just kind of break off every now and then. Anyways, long story short, I got the braces, and for about 2 years, I was your classic brace face. And then towards the end of that journey, I got the braces off, and then I had a meeting with my prosthodontist who basically said that there was 2 options in order to effectively correct my smile. So there was gonna be the option of getting veneers or crowns. What's funny is that I've been seeing a lot of people, and I legit mean a lot of people, sharing on TikTok their teeth journeys where they're literally going to Turkey, they're going to Colombia, all different types of places to get their hashtag turkey teeth, or in other words, you're just trying to get that perfect smile. And what's interesting is that a lot of these people have really, really healthy teeth, and they're getting veneers, or even worse, in terms of just how invasive the procedure is, they're getting crowns. And what's interesting is that this might make you happy for some time, assuming you even get a good doctor, but the work that's being done is super, super invasive, and there's no going back. It's funny because we get comments all the time where people are either complimenting my teeth or asking me if I got veneers, like, why are your teeth so white? Like, how did this happen? And what I think is interesting about that is that we're currently living in a time where cosmetic dentistry has become so normalized that people honestly just feel, number one, comfortable asking that question, but they also feel comfortable asking me because they assume that I've done something for the aesthetic. It's really one of those questions that's just really tough to answer without being able to give that backstory. And basically, when my doctor came to talk to me about veneers and crowns, he initially told me that he wanted to go the less invasive route, which is veneers. But because my case was so severe, he had to go with the route that was more invasive, which was me getting the crowns, if I was comfortable with that. Now, to fast forward my life a bit to pretty much like now where I've got the crowns in, basically these things are meant to last like 20 years down the line. Now, kind of like your regular longer term purchases, these things come with that natural wear and tear. And unfortunately with my teeth, I don't have a warranty on them. Anyways, a couple weeks ago, me and Steph were literally just at home, chilling, eating some food on the couch, when my tongue felt something really, really funny going on with my teeth inside my mouth. So in that moment, I instantly freaked out and I just went straight, like running straight to the washroom. Steph was actually freaked out and just super concerned as well, because she kind of guessed that it was my teeth, just knowing how expensive it was. But we were basically both hoping that it wasn't my teeth. Now, when I tell you guys, like when I went to that mirror and I looked into the mirror, this was one of the most like heartbreaking moments that I've had in a while. I looked at the mirror and when I opened my mouth, I saw that I was missing part of my tooth. Now, what sucked is that I wasn't missing just any regular tooth. This was one of my crowns. So in that moment, I just knew that in the next like couple weeks, I'm dishing out thousands and thousands of dollars. Anyways, guys, I called the doctor. I asked for an emergency appointment. And when I was going there, I was really, really hoping that he could just repair it, right? I didn't have the piece that got lost in the initial, like, breaking off event, I guess. But yeah, when I got there, what he told me was, unfortunately, we can't repair it, so it's gonna have to be a brand new tooth. So now, over the span of a couple weeks, this is when we began the series of appointments to actually get me that new tooth. And once again, here's where we talk about the money. So to give you guys a breakdown, obviously me and Steph are self-employed. So what that means is that any dental costs that come up, we have to pay for those out of pocket. Now, if I look back into when we were planning those future costs for when we were thinking about, actually going all in full-time as content creators, we weren't too concerned about dental costs, because when we looked at our previous work plans, they didn't actually cover as much as we thought. And then when we looked into getting our own plans, like as full-time content creators, that didn't really make any sense either. It more so made more sense for us to just pay for those cleaning costs, like those regular scheduled cleaning costs, just out of pocket. When I left my job at Deloitte, I actually had an emergency fund that had about $10,000 in it, which later grew to about $14,000. And the beauty behind me having this money was the simple fact that I wasn't out here stressing out, worrying about how I was gonna borrow the money, how I was gonna figure out how to front the bill. I literally just had the money ready to go, which is, once again, the essence of having an emergency fund. Like, you shouldn't be upset that you're having to use this money should an emergency come up, because that's the main reason why you saved the money to begin with. When I went into the doctor's office and he gave me a quote for $3,000 for a tooth and lab costs, and an additional $500 for his costs along with a new retainer, I was like extremely pissed about the situation, but I knew exactly where the money was coming from. Now, to wrap things up, guys, I really wanted to share this story with you, not only because it was money related, but because, cosmetic dentistry is really blown up into this like really, really huge industry. And from what I'm seeing a lot of young people making these like lifelong decisions off of temporary emotions, which is probably the last thing you want to be doing when you're in your 20s. And even for me, like if we take me for as an example, I would have never have gotten all of this work done, especially given how invasive it is, if I didn't have to, if I wasn't in a position where my teeth were literally breaking off. So either way, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was a very personal story. So yeah, hopefully, if you guys have any questions, you'll let me know down in the comment box below. And as usual, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and yeah, make sure you check out our videos next door over there somewhere. And yeah, we'll tune back in next video. Let's go.